He had hoped for an unprecedented fourth full term as the state's lieutenant governor, but David Dewhurst will be going home a lot earlier. This week, Dewhurst sat down with me to talk about his future and the direction he sees the state going. So with the release of Senator Patrick's medical records and this history of depression we keep hearing about, how has that affected your campaign? Many people have just assumed that it came from your campaign. Whether that's the case or not, that's the perception that's out there.
Well, it may be the perception with some, but of course we didn't have anything to do with it. It wasn't coordinated. And when I first heard about it, I didn't think it was a good idea, and I told Jerry Patterson that. But you used some words. These are public court documents. And what I think a lot of people forget is that Senator Patrick signed off on releasing all of those forms to the public over 25 years ago when he went for a big windfall, when he was trying to sue a reporter and the Houston Post. So all that's been in the public domain. We've now heard, I've heard that people have seen those things over the last 25 years. What Jerry Patterson did was simply put them out into easier access, but they've been in the public domain for 25 years.
This is the second time you have come into a competition against a Tea Party candidate. You know, many people see the Tea Party as a group of people that is going up in Texas, despite the fact that that's not happening in other states. Is Texas going to have a big Tea Party future?
This election isn't about who's more conservative, because both my opponent and I are very conservative. In fact, my opponent says he agrees with me 98% of the time. All right. So it's not about who's more conservative. It's about who has the ability, integrity, and the vision to move the state forward. I proved I can grow this state, create jobs in good economic times and bad. I've proven that I have the ability. I'm a lifelong businessman. I have a huge legislative successful record. My opponent has a puny record. On integrity, you cannot be lieutenant governor without your senators trusting that you'll keep your word. And they don't. They said on the record, time and time again. Take a look at a story by the Houston Chronicle not too long ago, that the senators don't trust Dan Patrick to do what he says he's going to do. On vision, finishing the job I've started of securing our border. We're there. We're there. I want to run our surge 24/7 and shut down the border year in and year out. I'm proud of the success we've had in securing our border. I want to protect kids in failing schools and get them out of those failing schools. That's why I love the parental trigger, where parents can fire a poorly performing school. I want to make sure there's individual responsibility. If you're receiving welfare, you're receiving unemployment benefits. And so I want to do drug testing. And last, most importantly, I want to come back and cut business taxes again, and I want to come back and cut local school property taxes. My opponent says that he's going to end property taxes they're controlled by the cities and the counties. But you can, through a lot of work, cut local school property taxes, which will cut your property taxes, and then I want to lower the cap on the appraisals so that we limit it to inflation and population growth. And if we do that, we're cutting the yearly increase by 60%, huge number.
Regardless of who has the most Tea Party support, many people do see Senator Patrick as perhaps the most conservative lawmaker in the state of Texas, and some have said if he is elected to become lieutenant governor, he would be the most conservative lieutenant governor in 40 years. How do you go up against something like that?
It's simply not true. It's simply not true. Senator Patrick is one of the least effective senators we've ever had. The only complex bill that I know he passed was a sonogram bill, and he had it so messed up that I had to go in and work with two pro-life leaders, Elizabeth Graham and Kylene Wright, to fix the bill. The one bill I gave him last year that I really wanted him to pass was to end C-scope. And not only did he not want to pass it out of the Senate until I made him, he went over in the House and he got with the Democrats on the back microphone and tried to kill the bill. Then when it passed out of the House, he went without doing his homework, which is so typical, and he went out and he had the C-scope not-for-profit dissolved. And then the whole 1,600 lessons plans went viral. The horses left the barn, and I've been trying to get them back in so that we can work with the State Board of Education and correct bias and factual error. Bias, which is Common Core, and factual error.
The Secretary of State here in Texas has prepared a report, and the House of Representatives committee has been talking about possibly moving the primary date in Texas. And we all know that, you know, last time when you ran for U.S. Senate, that the primary date was changed, and this possibly could have had something to do with voter turnout. How, going through that, would you like to see that play out as far as us changing the primary date?
Well, I think voters in Texas are used to having a primary the first week in March. And I'd have to see a strong argument to go ahead and change that. The problem is you get such a long time between a March in this year, March 4th primary, and waiting all the way until May 27th, the day after Memorial Day. We're going to see a dismal turnout, dismal. I mean, we had, what, 1.1 million, 1.2 million turnout for the primary. We'll be lucky if we get half that. And that's not in the best interest of all Texans.
What do you see as your biggest accomplishment as Lieutenant Governor being? If people were to remember you for one thing in the Senate, what would it be?
Well, it's sometimes hard to just find one thing, but by my coming into the Senate as the only career business person elected statewide out of 29 statewide elected officials, which I find unusual. What I've tried to do is create the best business climate I could in Texas. And I think we've been largely successful. Texas right now is #1 in every economic category worth reporting. We're leading job creation, strongest economy. So that's creating opportunity. But you can't have opportunity without freedom and liberty. And so that package of protecting Texans' liberties and protecting their freedoms so that we can have opportunity, which we've helped create right here, is what I'm very proud of.
David Dewhurst leaving the state's second highest post in 6 months. Thank you for joining us for State of Texas In Depth. Join us each Sunday morning at 8:30. NBC's Meet the Press is coming up in just a few minutes.